Hi, welcome to the Sales Experts channel. Today we're going to be talking about using your sales funnel to grow your business. If you're new to Bright Talk or the Sales Experts channel, I want to share with you a few things before we get started. If you have questions for me, look for Ask Now. It's a box in your view. In fact, why don't we test that out right now and see, why don't you guys say hello? Let me know where you're from. If I know you, let me know you're here. If I don't know you, introduce yourself to me. Let's get started and get to know each other. You are welcome to ask them. I will answer them just as soon as I can, and if I don't get to them while we're in the midst of the presentation, I will answer any questions at the end. So please, when you think of a question, go ahead and ask it. If you're having technical issues, please use the Bright Talk Help button. I'm not going to be able to do anything if your sound isn't working or if you can't see the screen, but if you go to the Bright Talk Help button, they will help you get the help you need, help 3 times. They'll help you get the support you need in order to get you working again. Okay, and that if you haven't seen the variety of topics available on the sales channel, I encourage you to take a look now. We have experts talking about everything you need to know about sales, and these are some really impressive people, good friends of mine and people I highly respect. So I encourage you, look around, get started. I want to say hi to Al from Houston and Mark Sellers, howdy. It's good to hear from you. So let's just jump right in. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. If you don't know me, my name is Liz Heiman, and I am the Chief Sales Strategist at Alice Heiman, LLC. And my mission is to take the mystery out of sales, to make sales manageable and to make sales predictable. And I'm going to guess that every one of you would love to know how to make sure that you're able to predict accurately, to forecast accurately from your sales funnel. And we're going to talk about that today. So let's jump right in and talk about how to use your funnel to grow your business. I really want to demystify sales, like I said, and your funnel is really the best way I know to do that. So really, in my mind, there is no magic in sales. There might be magic, you know, that magic that happens between the seller and the buyer when they really connect. That's magical. But the rest of sales, no magic. It's all about process and systems and consistency and doing things in a way that you are able to manage and support and predict. So we're going to talk about the funnel so that it's giving you that kind of ability. Your funnel is a critical part of executing both your business and your sales strategy. So once you establish goals, the funnel is the tool that tells you whether or not you're on track to hit those numbers and what it will take to get you back on track. So how does that work? Well, let's start by thinking about what is your sales funnel. There it is. Sometimes the slides go slowly, so bear with me. So some of you may refer to your funnel as a pipeline. It is the mechanism we use to manage sales opportunities. Sometimes we call them leads. I like the word opportunity because then I know it's gone from something we're just sort of thinking about to something that really could happen, a real opportunity. The funnel is typically broken down into stages, and I like to see between 5 and 7 stages. And your funnel will also include important information like the name of the prospect, the company, the product being sold, the value of the product or the quantity of the product, and the close date. And in a perfect world, it would also include next actions and the next action date. So if you had a funnel report that gave you everything you need, that's what would be on your funnel report. And not all CRMs will present the information to you that way, but if you are using a spreadsheet, you can certainly set it up that way. So we want to make sure that when we're thinking about our funnel, we're thinking about it as an opportunity manager, not as just a cold, stale report. This is the way that we understand what's happening in our sales environment, what all of our salespeople are doing, or if it's just me as a salesperson, what I'm responsible for and how it's moving forward. So why do you need a funnel? What on earth are you going to use it for? Well, let me share with you a couple of really good reasons that you need a funnel. The most important thing is that when your funnel is used properly, it is a powerful tool for your salespeople, your managers, and your company leadership. The funnel will allow you to forecast revenue at least as far into the future as your sales cycle allows. So if you have a 6-month sales cycle, you should have a pretty good idea of your revenue 6 months out. If you have a 2-month sales cycle, then your funnel will only let you know what your revenue is going to be 2 months out. But as long as your sales cycle is, your funnel will tell you how you're positioned to hit your revenue goals throughout those next 6 months or however long your sales cycle is. And it provides information to leaders so that they can coach their salespeople to achieve goals, and it helps salespeople manage and prioritize opportunities. I think one of the biggest things that happens in the world of sales is that we are overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, it's really hard to know what to do next. Our funnel helps us prioritize our activities and our leads so that we know where to focus and how to make sure that we are going to hit our goals. So why do I use funnel instead of pipeline? I use funnel because what I know is that whatever goes into the top of the funnel doesn't all come out the bottom. And it may be that you need as many as 10 leads to go in the top in order for one deal to close. So that creates a funnel shape as opposed to a pipeline. And when I hear a pipeline, it sounds to me a lot like a faucet. All the leads are moving through at the same pace, at the same velocity. And I wonder how many of you actually see that in your sales world. Do all of the leads kind of flow in at the same pace and keep going? And I'm going to guess that's not the case. It's not just that you turn on your faucet and the leads come pouring out and then you turn it off, or the sales come pouring out and then you turn it off and they stop. In fact, particularly in a complex sale, the funnel is more realistic. It's not a steady stream of business coming out the bottom unless you have a steady stream of lots of leads coming in the top. And today I'm going to be talking mostly about a B2B or business-to-business complex sale, in which case, because of the length of your sales cycle and the number of people involved in the buying process, that sales cycle, mapping that sales cycle and tracking your leads is going to become increasingly important. So for me, your funnel, we call it a funnel because it's shaped like a funnel. And we're going to put, what we know is that we are going to take steps along the way to remove leads from the funnel. So one of the things that happens in sales is once we put something in the top, we never ever want to let it go. But in fact, one of the reasons that I want you to see it as a funnel is because it's our job to qualify out those things that are not good leads. And so we often think about qualifying as qualifying in. I want to qualify this so I can move it forward. But just as important as qualifying this to move it forward is qualifying the other things out so that we don't spend any time on them. So as we move through our funnel, we are going to lose leads. We're going to qualify them out. We're going to go through a process of looking at problems and objections and identify leads opportunities that we thought we were going to be successful with that maybe we weren't, or maybe they're going to buy from the competitor, and we're going to move those out of the funnel. A funnel is all about ratios, so the shape matters. It's large on the top because we all know that we have to put a lot of leads in the top to get a few leads out, or few deals out the bottom. So when I look at it that way, my sales funnel should always have exponentially more opportunities at the top than it does in any other section. And we're going to look at that, what I call the sales math, in a little bit. But if you think about it, if you continue to think about it that way, you'll always know how you're positioned to meet your goals later on. So if you only have 3 things in the very top of the funnel and you need 10 things out the bottom in 6 months, that's not going to happen. So by looking at it that way and thinking about it that way, we're able to understand our positioning for future business. So it doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you understand the concept that it's shaped like a funnel for a reason. Let's talk a little bit about the stages of the funnel. So in my mind, there are 5 stages of the funnel. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. The stages of your funnel and the activities in them are determined by your sales process. So I wonder, let's take a break for just a second, and I want to do a quick survey. Let's see how you guys do on this. How do we do this? Start voting. I want to know, do you have a documented sales process that your team follows? So while we're talking, if you guys could fill that in, that will let me know how you're positioned to build out your sales funnel effectively. And I will help you out with your sales process in just a little bit if you don't have one. But in order to have an effective sales funnel, which you're going to put into your CRM as your process, you need to have a clear, documented sales process. So let me know how many of you have that. If you don't have a well-defined sales process, creating your funnel will be difficult. So it's going to be really important that you figure that out. An effective sales funnel only needs to have 5 to 7 stages. I know that may seem surprising to you. I've seen as many as 13 to 15, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you combine your marketing and sales funnel, you may have a few more, but truly, for sales, they need 5 to 7 stages. They need prospect, qualify, what I call verify or cultivate, close, and one or lost. But that is all they need. So I'm just going to share with you, right now we have about 33% of you said yes, you have a documented sales process. That's great. 33% of you said you have one, but it needs work, and I'm going to give you some help on that in just a minute. 25% have said no, but we need one, and 8% of you have never heard of a sales process before, but by the time you get off this webinar, you will be an expert in sales process. And if you're not, next month I'm going to do another webinar that really goes through building your sales process so you can become an expert then. So with it, let's go back to the stages of the funnel. Within the stages of the funnel are the various activities that take place to move the sale along. So competitive position and status of the sale are all important, but they are not stages. The only stages are prospect, qualify, verify or cultivate, close, and won or lost. So to keep your funnel simple and keep track of activities and status in other ways. So if you have a CRM, you will have places where you can identify those different things. And if you're just using a spreadsheet, that's okay. And you can also keep track of them in your spreadsheet. So let's move forward and talk a little bit more about the stages of your funnel. I want you to think about, I know this is silly, ing, right? Liz, why did you put ing on the stage? But I put it on there because I want you to think about your funnel as something that is in progress. So although I use the words, I'm going to jump back up for a second, although I use the words prospect, qualify, verify, close, really what you're doing in each of the stages of the funnel is prospecting, qualifying, cultivating, closing. It isn't until you get to won or lost that it's done. And even then, you could have other stages in the funnel that move you to, getting referrals and making sure that onboarding works. But once it's won, it's won. But everything before that is an activity. It's in progress. I want everybody to understand that we're doing something, and that what I see sometimes is that people will put qualified IED or a stage that isn't really a stage. They'll put that the agreement has been submitted or the proposal has been submitted. Neither of those are stages. Those are qualified is something that's happened that you check off as an activity, and so is proposal submitted. Those are things that happen during the qualifying process. Once it's qualified, you move it to verify or cultivate. And then during close or during verify and cultivate, you may have then submitting the proposal. So those things happen within the stages. So I want you to think about stages as things that we're doing. We're in process. Let's look a little bit more closely at the funnel in a different way so you can understand it better. So this is what a funnel, this is how I represent a funnel. And notice again that the top is much wider than the bottom. And I like to think about my funnel as being representative of both what my salespeople are doing and what my buyers are doing. So your sales funnel and your sales process, remember I said your sales process is the basis of your sales funnel, and these things on the side are really part of what your sales process is. So what do we do when we're prospecting? So if prospecting is the first phase of the funnel, it's when your team is reaching out to people who have not yet indicated an interest. They're people that we are saying, hey, we think they would be a good fit, and we're reaching out to them. Qualifying is the process once the prospect has indicated some interest, but you still need to determine if there's a budget, a fit, a timeline. During this stage, your team might be exchanging emails or getting on the phone or doing video meetings, but you're using this time to figure out how good the fit is and whether this is somebody you want to keep moving toward close or somebody you're going to qualify out. And verifying or cultivating is when your team is meeting with all of the bases. I call all of the buyers. I call this covering the bases. So they're talking to all of the different people who are going to be involved in the buying process, and they're confirming with each of them the fit and working to build interest. It's also when they're going to identify potential objections and work on finding solutions so that they can keep moving the sale forward. And during this stage, that's when the sales rep is focused on finalizing the details and getting a commitment from the buyer. Ideally, that would be when you get the contract signed, when you would get the check delivered or the payment delivered. You would take care of any legal issues. So that is, that's the process of closing. And then you know it's closed. I just have one at the bottom because lost is also an opportunity. But you know it's closed when you are, when you have the payment, when you have the contract, when all of the legal documents have been delivered. It's really interesting though, because I think that close is the simplest stage of the funnel to understand, but in fact, for a lot of companies, there's confusion around this. Is it closed when the buying influences say it's closed? Is it closed when they've actually signed a contract? Is it closed when they actually deliver payment? You guys need to decide that, but in my mind, it's closed when you have an agreement and you have payment. But you have to decide that for yourself, and you want to be really clear about that so your salespeople know. So one of the important things about your funnel is that you want to know that your salespeople understand how to move something from one phase of the funnel to the next. So it's a prospect if a potential fit is clear. It's not qualified until a possible order is determined. And then in the next stage, the possible order is verified, and then we can move it on. And then the last phase is the customer has actually placed an order and paid for it. So you will decide in your own personal funnel strategy how you move something from one stage to the next. And the more specific you are, the more accurate your funnel will be. Because when we have our sales team fully understanding the definitions and the activities and all of those things and what needs to happen in order to move it forward, then you will have the most accurate funnel possible. Let's talk a little bit about sales process. This is, and I know it's a little hard to see, but this is an example of a sales process. And so let's go through this really briefly and make sure that you guys are with me. But this is how you build a sales process. You start with the stage, and we've already talked about stages. There's prospect, qualify, cultivate, close, won or lost. Now, what I want to say about these stages that I haven't said yet is this is what I call them. If you were taking strategic selling, the Miller-Heiman program, you would be doing above, universe, above, in, best view. And if you were using somebody else's vocabulary, you would be using different words. It doesn't really matter as long as you're all really clear about what those stages are and what the definitions of those stages are. The other thing that happens, we talked about this already, is that for each stage of the funnel, or each stage in your process, there are specific actions that would need to take place. So for instance, in prospect, you might be gathering information before you actually reach out and contact a person. You might be thinking about what the appropriate messaging would be. And you might, at that point, decide you're going to call, email, connect, or go visit them. These are all actions that would be beginning stages or actions during prospecting. Now, you also have a series of questions that need to be asked and answered during these stages. For prospect, you're not asking the customer questions necessarily, but what you are thinking about things like, is there any news that I've seen about this company that might impact their need? What will be interesting to each buyer in this particular company? And what's the best way to reach this person? So for instance, if I'm selling to construction companies, I'm probably not looking for them on LinkedIn. But if I'm talking to a SaaS company or a high-tech company, I'm probably going to find them on LinkedIn. So I need to know where my buyer is and the best way to communicate with them. So let's think about qualify for a moment. So in qualify, you're going to be researching for clues about finances and stability because these are things that might qualify somebody out. You're going to talk to them about timelines and budgets because if they can't come up with a timeline or a budget, maybe this isn't the right time for them. And you're going to start to determine the fit. You're going to ask them questions about what's working and what's not working in their organization so you can figure out whether or not there's a fit. And you also want to make sure that they fit your ideal customer profile. I don't know if you guys have taken the time to create an ideal customer profile, but we often create a target list, which is a very broad definition of the kinds of people we sell to. For instance, if I sell motorcycles, my target list might start with everybody who rides motorcycles. But if I sell Hondas, I might have a different definition, which might be people between the ages of 18 and 35 and with a certain income. There might be certain things that make them a better fit, because certainly the description of somebody who rides a Harley is not going to be the same as the description of my ideal customer, right? So the kinds of things I might be asking them is, do you have this particular problem? Have you thought about this particular kind of solution? When do you need your problem solved? So when we're talking about timelines, we're talking about them having a problem and needing it solved, as opposed to when would you purchase this from me? And do you have a budget to solve this problem? And if they don't, how would you create a budget to solve this problem? So rather than talking about our product, we're going to be talking to them. Our questions are going to be about their situation and their problems. So let's talk about cultivate or verify or pursue or whatever you call that in your organization. This is a time when you need to understand the buying process, make sure you meet all of the buyers, that you're focused on solving any problems that would be coming up along the way, and you're uncovering any potential obstacles that might slow down the sale. And what might you ask? You might ask, what steps must happen in order to make this purchase? How can we include all the people involved in the buying process? What could stop this purchase? Whose signature will be required to approve this process? So I think by now you get the idea, and I don't need to go through all the rest of this, but the idea is that for every stage there are actions and there are questions. And these can go into your CRM if you want them to, or they can go into your playbook if you have one. And if you don't have a sales playbook, next month I'll be actually doing a webinar on playbooks. And that might be helpful at this point as you're thinking about your sales process and your sales funnel. So let me ask you guys a question while we're sitting here. Now that you've seen sort of what the stages of your sales process would be, and you're thinking about your CRM and your sales funnel, tell me, does your sales process match your funnel or your CRM? So if you think about what actually happens during your sales process, is that the same as what you have in your CRM? Or do you have a bunch of steps and actions and activities and nonsense in there that really doesn't match the sales process that your sales team needs to go through in order to close the sale? I'd like you to think about that for a minute, because one of the things that I've found when I go through with people and actually work with them on their sales process, and then they look back at their CRM, they realize their CRM has a lot of stuff in it that it really doesn't need. And it becomes very confusing to their salespeople. So think about that for a minute as we're moving on. Think about what is the match between your sales funnel and your sales process. And if you guys have questions about sales process or sales funnel, please make sure that you're adding those to the questions from the audience, so that I am able to answer them for you. Okay, so while we're waiting for you guys to answer those, we're getting some answers. Let's talk about patterns in a funnel, and what on earth do I mean by that? If you have everybody on your team following the same sales process and using your CRM or your spreadsheet or whatever tool you're using in the same way, meaning they all define prospect, qualify, verify, and close in the same way, they all move a sale from one stage or an opportunity from one stage to the next stage in using the same criteria. They're all asking the same questions along the way, so there are no surprises. They're all following that sales process and putting that information into your CRM or whatever mechanism you're using to track your funnel. Then you will begin to see patterns. And the kinds of patterns that you'll see will be things like velocity. How long does it take for a typical sale to go through each stage of the funnel? You'll also see things like funnels that are out of balance. If you look at your funnel and you see, gosh, we don't get enough in the top and we get a lot of stuff stuck in verify and it's not moving through, it's just kind of stuck there, then I can start to think about what does that mean and what do I need to do about it. You will also see things like whether people have good sense of prioritizing. So one of the things that happens in many companies is everyone is focused on what needs to close now. And they don't spend time up at the top of the funnel. They don't prioritize putting new leads in the top of the funnel. They don't prioritize covering the bases or qualifying things out. And so what happens is that they are not getting enough stuff coming out the bottom of the funnel. And, or more importantly, what you'll see is close dates push and push and push. I wonder how many of you see that. I bet some of you are nodding your heads going, oh my gosh, every month those close dates push. I'll tell you why those close dates push. And this is a secret that you can share with everybody you know because it's a really powerful secret. And that is the reason your close dates are pushing is your salespeople are not doing the work that they need to do at the top end of the funnel. They're not making time and scheduling time to qualify. They're not making time to cover the bases and ask all those questions that will identify potential obstacles to closing the deal. They're missing steps along the way. And so at the end, when they think, oh, we're a month from closing, and then they start working on that lead, they discover that, oops, I forgot these steps. And this is now going to take 3 or 4 or 6 more months. So these things all become really visible when everybody is using your funnel and you as a manager are actually watching what's happening in your funnel for each of your salespeople. I want you to think about that for just a minute. And let me share with you the results of the funnel of the last question, which is about 57% of you said that your sales funnel and your sales process and your CRM all match. And that's great. Good for you. And for about 28% of you, they said they don't match. And that is a good thing to know. So here's a great opportunity to get them all matched up. And for those of you who haven't set it up yet, now you know what to think about. So I'm really pleased that we've had this conversation. Okay, so these are the patterns that you're going to see in your funnel. As a sales manager, as a sales leader, as a company owner, as you begin to know whether or not what is in your funnel is actually going to close. So if you know that your salespeople are not doing a good job covering the bases and your timelines keep pushing, the close dates keep pushing, you know as a sales leader or a company owner that your team needs 2 things. One is they need somebody making sure that they're covering the bases, and 2, they need some training on how to cover those bases. And 3, you may need to talk about your company culture. And a lot of times the reasons your salespeople are only focused on what's at the bottom of the funnel is because that's what sales leadership and corporate leadership is focused on. So if you don't make sure that they understand that you also prioritize the work that's going on, prioritize and value the work that's going on higher up in the funnel, they will only be focused at the bottom of the funnel, and you will not be able to predict close dates, and you will not be able to predict revenue. And this becomes really important. So if you know that your team is accurately using the funnel and that they're doing all of the things that they need to do and they're keeping their close dates from pushing, then you will actually be able to predict revenue. And if you can predict revenue, then you're able to make really good decisions about what kind of resources you need on the operations side and on the implementation side. If, on the other hand, you see problems with the funnel, you'll know what resources you need to apply, either at the top of the funnel with marketing and SDRs perhaps, or midway through the funnel with training and coaching, or at the bottom of the funnel with some support from leadership to help get deals closed. So this becomes really powerful. And you then know better how to allocate resources in your company. This is why those patterns are so important. So let's just remind you of what the patterns that you'll see are. You'll see the length of your sales cycle. You'll begin to see your close ratios, which is what we're going to base the sales math discussion on. You're going to and what rate things fall out of the funnel. So the more qualified your leads are going into the top of the funnel, the fewer will be qualified out. It's not bad to qualify out, but we have a funnel that's a little bit narrower, and that's not a bad thing. We just need to know what is the math and how does it work. All right, so let's talk about, come on, go. I'm not very good at driving these things. I need a driver. Somebody needs to volunteer and be my driver. Let's talk a little bit about sales math. I think, you know, it's really funny because I am so not the mathematician. I'm a political scientist by training, and I'm a poet and a writer, and math is, you know, my math teacher used to have to hold my hand to get me through math tests, right? And here I am, the queen of sales math, right? It's really, really important that you know your sales math. So let's think about what exactly that would mean. I think that every company needs to know that they each have their own sales map, and it's based on close ratios, sales cycle, and how often close dates push. So I can't know what's really going on unless I fully understand those things. A typical expectation is that for every 10 things that go in the top of the funnel, only one will actually close. That's a 10-to-1 ratio. So during the prospecting process, your team will discover that some companies don't have a need or they're not a good fit. And while you're qualifying, your team will discover that some of the opportunities aren't a good fit to your ideal customer profile, or the product isn't going to fit well. And while you're cultivating, it will be discovered that you aren't going to be able to overcome all of the obstacles in every opportunity, and those will fall away. This is normal, and it allows the team to keep focusing on the opportunities that are the best fit, the most profitable, and the most likely to close. This is critical to managing a sales team. We want to make sure that they're focused on what is going to close. So it might look like this, right? 10, maybe there's 7 in qualify, maybe there's 4 in cultivate, 2 are in the process of being closed, and 1 of them actually comes out the bottom. This might be your sales math, but it's your job to know what really is your sales math. What does this really look like? And it may vary from sales rep to sales rep or product to product. So I want you guys to track this and keep thinking about this so that you can predict what's really going to happen, and so that you know how many leads you need to put in the top. So if you need 10 next month, if 6 months from now you need 10 opportunities to close at a value of $50,000 each, then that means, do you need 100 leads 6 months in advance of that to go into the funnel? And if that's the case, how are you going to get them there? And if typically out of 10, you typically get 7 to qualify, then you need to look, are there 7 in qualified, or are there only 3? Did we put bad leads in the top? Do we need better leads? So your job is to fully understand this. Another way, some of you like ratios. So this is another way to think about it. Whoops, I am not sharing the right screen with you. Hang on, you guys. I'm talking away and you're not even seeing the right thing. Here we go. So this is what your sales math would look like. And another way to think about that is in ratios. So from prospect to qualify is 10 to 7. From qualify to verify is 7 to 4. So that means you know that if 7 go into qualify, 4 are going to end up in verify, and 3 of them are going to be qualified out. Doesn't matter how you look at this as long as you're comfortable with your sales math. And if you guys have questions on sales math, I encourage you to ask, because to me this makes perfect sense, but I realize that as I'm talking about it to some people, it isn't really clicking. So let me know if you have questions. So what's the result? And we've already talked about a lot of these results already. If your team is carefully trained to accurately maintain their funnel, you'll be accurately forecasting and adjusting activities and priorities to make sure that you hit your goals. That's the result. This is powerful stuff. If you understand your funnel, you are better able to run your business. I want to just really quickly, before we run out of time, because we only have about 5 more minutes, the 4 mistakes that people make when they're creating their funnel and their sales process. One is using past tense. Remember, we already talked about it. Nothing is past tense except closed, won, or lost. Mistake 2, using activities as stages. Make a place within each stage to identify the activities that need to happen, but don't add a whole bunch of stages to your funnel that are really just activities. So while we're verifying, we may have to do demos and we may have to get certain data. Make all of those things activities within the stages, not stages themselves. It gets too confusing. Mistake number 3 is confusing stage and status. So we may have things that are active, or we may have things that are stalled, or we may have things that are moving slowly. Those are status. Those are not stages. So put those also within your sales funnel, within each, or within your CRM, within each stage. And mistake number 4 is confusing competitive position with status. Vendor of choice is not a stage of the funnel. It is a competitive position. And you could be the vendor of choice at any stage in the funnel. And that could change along the way. So maybe as you're getting to verify, all of a sudden the client decides, wow, we really need to go look at some other vendors before we finalize this. And then they bring somebody in that they like better. So suddenly you went from vendor of choice to not in a very competitive position. So be really clear, this is not a stage. This is a competitive position. That is all I have to tell you about managing your funnel and using your funnel to grow your business. Let me answer a few questions, which we have here, and then any others that you have. You have my email address here. Please write it down, and my LinkedIn. If you have more questions, please reach out to me. Okay, this is a really good question. Liz, can you speak to funnel management for companies that use channel partners? This is really difficult because you are not able to make your channel partners do much of anything. But what you can do is create for them the same funnel process that we just created. If they will share that information, and some relationships do. So if you can give them a sales funnel process that they can use and share with you, that will help you to understand what's really going on with them. If not, you're going to have to create your own funnel and update it yourself and just have regular communication with your channel partners so that you can keep the funnel updated. So you'll need your list of questions that you're asking them about the customers. Okay, and then there were 2 more questions. One was about the sales math screen and going back to the previous screen. So if you still need to see those screens, please let me know. I'll go back to the sales math screen for just a second. Okay, let me go back to the sales math screen for just a second. Recurring revenue is really interesting. So I think that every time a contract is coming up for renewal, it goes into the funnel. And you might, some companies have 2 funnels and some just have 1. So you could have a funnel for recurring revenue, but you could also put it into the funnel. If you feel pretty good about it going to close, you might put it lower down in the funnel. But if you have no idea, you may need to put it back up into qualify and go through the entire process with them. So I absolutely think that you should have your contracts that are coming up in the future in your funnel, because we just assume that things are going to close, and we know that is not the case. And one of the biggest problems that companies are facing today in the market, particularly in SaaS companies, is making sure they're not losing more business out the back with companies that aren't renewing then they're bringing in new companies in the front or new logos. So I would say if you have a contract that's coming due, put it in your funnel and go through your process with them. So we have come to the end of our time. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to get an email from you. Feel free to do that. And if you really want to talk, if you want to talk a little bit more about how to use your sales funnel to grow your business, my phone number is right here. You'll get my staff, and they'll help you set up a meeting with me. You guys have a fabulous day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Take care. I'm going to sit here for just a few more minutes in case there's more questions, but the rest of you, I'll let you go. Have a great day. Okay, so I just got another question I'm going to answer while I'm sitting here. How can I make sure my agents fill in the information about the sales in my CRM in order that I control the competition? So here's how you do it. You do funnel reviews, and I think you do a funnel review at least every month with every sales rep. And if they're not good at keeping their funnel up to date, then you do it every week until they get good at it. And you have criteria for what your funnel review is going to include. So let them know, I want to make sure that all of your close dates are up to date, that everything is in the right position in the funnel, that that you have a next action in place, that you have identified the people who are involved, and then when you sit down in your funnel review, which is an hour long, you ask them that question. If you will send me a note, I will send you more information about that. What would be a good technique to manage linearity to close ops? You know what? I don't have time to answer that, but if you will send me an email or if you will send me a LinkedIn, we can have a conversation about that. All right, you all have a great day. We're about to come to the end, and they're about to turn off this webinar. Take care.